Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone celebrating in the United States, as well as those communities in Brazil who also celebrate. It's Thin Lizzy Thursday, and today I will talk about Thin Lizzy's ninth album, released on April 13, 1979, on Vertigo Records in the UK and Mercury Records here in the United States. Black Rose, a rock legend. This would be the only album to feature Irish legendary guitarist, the late great Gary Moore. He had played in Thin Lizzy. He did a tour with them in 77 when Brian Robertson injured his hand. And he also played a song on Nightlife, Still in Love with You. But this would be the only one to feature him as a full-time member, and he would leave the band mid-tour for this album. This was released in 1979, as I indicated before. It was produced by Tony Visconti and Thin Lizzy, just as their previous album, Bad Reputation, was. But this is a much improved production, in my opinion. This is arguably their finest sounding album. We're going at 39 minutes, a tight album, even though we have a 7-minute plus epic at the end. Our band at this point: Phil Lynott on lead vocals, bass, and 12-string guitar. Brian Downey on drums and percussion. Scott Gorham on lead guitar, rhythm guitar, and backing vocals. Gary Moore on lead guitar, rhythm guitar and backing vocals. This would be their most successful album. In the UK, it would hit number 2, and it would go gold in the UK. It would only hit number 81 here in the United States. So what we have here, and before I go into the tracks, let's go to the album cover, where you got Jim Fitzpatrick bringing his magic again. We have the blood droplets coming out of the Black Rose. Very memorable cover. We have on this album is we have some songs that have great hooks on them. We have some songs that are really heavy. We got a funky song. We have a pretty ballad, and we have an epic for the ages. Just to let you know, Jimmy Bain also played bass on With Love. We had Huey Lewis, who later would form Huey Lewis and the News, was in the band Clover at that time. He plays harmonica on With Love and on the song Sarah. And we have Mark Nassif also playing drums on Sarah. Now, Mark Nassif had played drums with Thin Lizzy on the tour before this album was released when Brian Downey was ill. So let's get into the tracks. Do Anything You Want To was a number 14 hit in the UK. We start out with those heavy kettle drums before those wonderful unison guitar lines from Gary and Scott kick in. Great cutting lyric here from Phil. Wonderful performance, very highly spirited. Awesome bridge on here. Excellent solos. Kick-ass opening track. Toughest Street in Town. Now, this is a raucous anthem. It has the spirit of The Boys Are Back in Town, but it's a different song. The Boys Are Back in Town had hooks galore. This is just a good, kick-ass, in-your-face, heavy rock song. And this is very strong. Bill had to rewrite the lyrics on this, and the lyrics are very biting. Phil's original lyrics were actually more biting, and Vertigo asked him to rewrite the lyrics, which is interesting because the next track is S&M. Brian and Phil wrote this. We go funk rock. And musically, this song kicks ass. What a groove laid down by Brian and Phil. But lyrically, this would not go over in 2024, particularly from the second verse on. This is like on the level of Prince's lyrics on 1999 and on the Come album and a few others like that. These are very, very graphic. Cool tune musically. I'm not the hugest lyric guy in the world, but yeah, this I'm like, oh, it's kind of always been that way for me. It's a very cool tune musically. Waiting for an Alibi was the first single off this. It hit number 9 in the UK. It should have been a big hit here too in the States, but we're focusing on disco and power pop and younger bands that are coming in and playing hard rock like Van Halen, AC/DC. Punk's really making its way here in the States as well. But Waiting for an Alibi is one of their best singles, period. Starts out with that groove from Phil and Brian before those unison guitars kick in again. Wonderful hooks on here, great storytelling lyric about Valentino. Excellent tracks. Great solos in here from both Scott and Gary. Kick-ass song. The end of it when they're playing those unison guitar lines again before the main verse kicks in, and then the way it ends is also excellent. Sarah, written by Phil and Gary, hit number 24 in the UK. Now, this is the pretty ballad that I talked about earlier. Phil wrote 2 songs called Sarah. He wrote Sarah on Shades of a Blue Orphanage for his grandmother. He wrote this Sarah for his daughter. And very pretty ballad. The guitars on here are very pretty. Phil's vocals are very tender. The vocal melody is like a lullaby. And the guitars on here, so tasteful. Wonderful song. It sounds like a complete outlier, but it's great. Got to Give It Up, written by Phil and Scott. This is yet another one in the now becoming a long line of substance abuse songs that Phil was writing. He was writing them about himself, but here it's very evident that this is about him. Now, here the chords are carrying the way along with Phil's vocal melody. His lyric and his vocal on here are very in your face again. We got some cool counter bass lines on here as well during the guitar solo. This would sadly be prophetic for Phil, as would some other tracks in the same vein that I will be talking about on future episodes. It is a very good track, though. Get Out of Here. Phil wrote this with Midge who was originally actually at this time he was playing with a band called Misfits. No, not the Glenn Danzig Misfits. And then later he would be in Ultravox. Now, here we're letting those chords ring. Hard-hitting song, lyrically and musically. Very melodic. Cool track. With Love. Excellent tale of heartbreak. And one of the most underrated songs in the Thin Lizzy canon, in my humble opinion. Again, we have those great unison guitars on here, very soulful vocals. We got a nice bridge on this. Very strong track, which leads us into Roshan Dub, Black Rose. Now, this song is Phil's attempt to put all that was great about Ireland into an epic. And he really embraces that Irish spirit on this with the original passages on here, as well as the inclusion of some traditional folk songs in the Irish tradition, like Shenandoah, Will You Go, Lassie Go, Danny Boy, and The Mason's Apron. Now, 3 of these are traditional Irish songs. Will You Go, Lassie Go was written by Francis McPeak, and they were rearranged by Phil and Gary. The guitar lines on here are spectacular. That driving rhythm by Brian, excellent. This is an epic for the ages. Well sung by Phil. He's name checking a lot of the heroes of Ireland, whether it was during war or during like Sporting Heroes or Van Morrison. This is a fantastic track. Very majestic, hard rocking as hell. The unaccompanied guitar solo from Gary Moore before the drums kick in, the rest of the band. It's one of the most exciting things that Thin Lizzy has ever done. It is a fantastic closer. You can argue this is just as strong as Emerald, even maybe even more so. Wonderful way to end a great album. This is Black Rose, a rock legend from 1979. So, what do you think of this album? Do you believe that this is also the last of their great albums? Do you think the albums that came after this were just as strong? What do you think of the singles on here? Did they deserve a better fate? Do you think there was maybe a little too much diversity on here because we're going from S&M and Waiting for an Alibi to a pretty song like Sarah? Please let me know in the comments. Join me next week on It's Thin Lizzy Thursday when I review Thin Lizzy's 10th album from 1980, Chinatown. Before I give you some programming notes, let me just put out a couple plugs. Christmas is coming. Do you have a friend or family member that loves Thin Lizzy? Well, TeePublic can make you a cool Thin Lizzy shirt, like this one. I bought this a couple weeks ago, and this is the Nightlife logo, and you could pick from a variety of colors. They have a t-shirt for nearly any occasion. It's not just rock t-shirts. You may know TeePublic. They make the t-shirts for the YouTube channels Sea of Tranquility, The Contrarians, Grab a Stack of Rock, Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I've worn t-shirts on these shows. Joni Mitchell shirts, Little Feat shirts, Ian Hunter shirts, Contrarian shirts, a Grants Rock Warehouse shirt. They were all made by TeePublic. So I highly recommend them if you need a Christmas idea for someone you love. TeePublic kills, and they frequently offer 35% off on their t-shirts, just to let you know that. Also, for the Thin Lizzy fan in your life, may I highly recommend Honesty is No Excuse. Thin Lizzy on Record. This is the panel book that Martin Popoff put out back in March of 2024 with very strong collection of panelists on here, which I was blessed to be one of them. I talk about 4 albums in this book, but everybody here did an outstanding job. And you got people fans from all walks of life, whether they've been lifelong fans or came in a little bit later. Everybody here has a great perspective. This is available at Martin Popoff's website. I will have the link to the description in the video about this book, and you can also buy the book at Amazon.com. Just to give you some programming notes, the Accept Up to the Limit series continues on my friend John Clauser's channel, My Music Corner. The episode on the 2012 album Stalingrad has just dropped. This one featured John and I, along with Jack Toledano from the wonderful YouTube channel All or Not According to Jack. That's out there right now. I have just recently put out some new episodes. I put out the album After on Alanis Morissette's album, Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie. I also have my top 10 favorite albums of 2000 also out there on the Music Nut program. Also, we did a show on Grants Rock Warehouse a few days ago. Our top 10 songs from 1986. We had a wonderful panel on there. It was a very entertaining show. Awesome rapport in the chats where everyone was watching live as well. So, Again, happy Thanksgiving to you all who celebrate. Do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.